Welcome back. The royal race row has been reignited by the claims in Omid Scobie's book. My decision to announce the names behind the claims has made headlines around the world, from India to New Zealand and the United States, where, of course, Harry and Meghan reside. The British royal family is a global brand, which is precisely why Meghan's original claims were so damaging. Now we know much more about the allegations. Does anyone really still believe them? Well, joining me to discuss this, our Talk TV contributor Esther Cracker, political journalist Ava Santina, and from New York, the Talk TV presenter Trisha Goddard. All right, Esther, we just had a rather animated debate about all this, which I thought was a little unnecessarily over the top. What's your view about all this?
I think the people's desire to believe whether the royal family are racist or not stems from what they originally feel about the royal family to begin with. If you think the royal family is an antiquated institution that's, rooted in white supremacy, of course you're happy to believe that, the racism allegations were true. If you're a staunch monarchist, you're like, they can never do any wrong. And for the rest of us, we're thinking, okay, what's the evidence? Because at the end of the day, the monarch is still our head of state, and it's important that they're obviously not bigoted individuals. And that's the camp that I fall in. At the end of the day, I don't see any evidence of racism. I've said this before. I'm from a Ghanaian family. If I was having a child with someone who wasn't of my race, my family would have conversation about what the child would look like in a jovial way.
Of course.
And I think there was an element of bad faith.
Of course. So if it was that, there's nothing wrong with that anyway. Ava.
But we don't know that.
We don't know.
Come on. Come on.
No, I'm serious.
If there's been a conversation behind doors about, the child's skin colour, obviously
okay,
that
answer me this.
Hasn't it?
Meghan's mother was in an interracial relationship, which Meghan is a product of. Meghan's family would have undoubtedly had conversations. Oh, what's Meghan going to look like? I wonder what she's going to look like since your husband is white. Would that have made her family racist?
Do you think that...
That's a very good question.
Answer that. Would that have made Meghan's family racist?
Can I answer it with this point, that do you not think that is skewed by your now... With the British monarchy, and they are assessing whether that child is too dark to be in the royal family?
But you don't believe that. You don't believe that was the way that conversation went down.
I wasn't there.
No, but you believe it.
None of us were there.
Does any of it make sense that Charles and Kate, of all people, right, typically have dedicated their public life to actually being completely inclusive, never said a racist word in their lives, that suddenly they're going to be saying, I hope it's not too brown.
But hold on.
Let me answer that. I'm going to be extremely careful with what I say because of libel law, but I do think that there is some racism in the royal family, not necessarily...
That's fine.
I'm not going to put that on any individual, but yes, I could imagine a world where there are...
All right, let me bring in Trisha, who's been waiting patiently. Trisha, look, let's try and have a sensible conversation about this. I've just watched the Sussexes backtrack. It's gone from racism, and we heard it from their own mouths on Oprah, to unconscious bias. No one's produced a shred of actual evidence here. I'm sorry, I'm calling it's nonsense.
Piers, I had a really interesting conversation with my kids who are biracial, and they have people in their family, extended family, who have used words or little phrases that anybody else would just think, doesn't matter. But because of their personal experiences, they've had to sit down with those people and say, this term is not acceptable. I know you think it's a joke. I know you think we should lighten up, but within our family, it hurts. It's painful because of our experience. Now, if I can say that, there's somebody out, people in our family who've had those conversations, and yes, they're hurtful. If somebody comes along after the fact, 2 years down the track, and makes it all public, and it blows it up, it becomes even more painful. And people, when you talk about backtracking, can I rephrase that? Sometimes we can learn. I've watched you grow, if I can put it that way. We're never too old to learn. I've seen you learn, as I have, with lots of different things around Israel, Gaza. We learn. What if, let me just put this to you, what if, since they initially came out with what an American sees as racism, and I do think there are cultural differences.
Yes,
just because we're all brown doesn't mean to say we all think the same. But what if from there they've learned, and it's not so much as backpedaling, because I'm just thinking of family members within ours. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I shouldn't have said that. Or maybe they didn't mean to be racist, but they didn't even realise, they're so used to being casual about it, they didn't realise it would hurt us. But I have to say about Omid Scobie, he is like the uncle who turns up 2 years after the fact at a Christmas party and shows off the messages that you texted them 2 years ago when you were drunk. I mean, when I heard this book was coming out, can I say this? Are we uncensored?
Yes.
Should I be honest what I really thought?
Yes.
I thought, what the f***? I'm sorry. I was like, oh, for Christ's
I'd like to apologise
sake.
to any viewers offended, but we are uncensored, and you know what?
I'm sorry.
That's exactly what I thought too. I just haven't said it yet.
It's like the horse has bolted.
Yeah.
It's at the knackered yard. It's glue. And I don't believe anything was done with malintent. I think there was a lot of misunderstanding. I do think there are terms and questions. And it depends where you're brought up. But if there are questions and people are talking about what a baby's colour are, for one family, it may be done in a light-hearted way. In another family, if there's already friction, it might be the
before we go to
final
the
twist of the knife.
All right, before we go to the break.